Hello, everyone. Happy 2023. Happy New Year. Welcome back to Crossroads of Cognizance. We're live for another year, another moment to spend some time with you all and to talk about all things woo woo, metaphysical, spiritual, our experiences, supporting others, our personal experiences, and just to have a good time because it's usually what we have on this show. So, if this is your first time joining us, we will go into introductions, but I want to make sure that we get our topic of discussion on the board. So, we're going to be covering a few things today. We're going to talk about the lunar energies that are going on. January decided to have a Mercury retrograde for the first couple weeks. Weird. And we are going to dive into numerology. I don't think we've done that before. But before we get into those bogged down details, let's introduce ourselves. So I am Dahlia Rose. I am the resident healer, keeper, support system, counselor, reader at the ethereal crystal cognizance that's in my heart. And I am supporting people virtually now, along with some in-person classes and workshops at other places. But I'm not here alone.
Hi, everybody. I'm Katrina Raspold. I'm half of Crossroads Occult at crossroadsoccult.com. I also work completely virtually now. As most of you know, both Dahlia and I have previously had brick and mortar stores. And what happens is that you get to a place where you need your reach to go far beyond that. And so you just sort of vibrate and you actualize out in there into the internets. And so that's what she and I have both done. We did so within a month of each other, which was it a month? Within a month? Within 2 months?
Yeah. You were October. I was November.
Yeah, we just went bam, 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 and it was the next thing that needed to happen. Now that's going to be a big component of what we're talking about today. Is that a lot of what is in play right now energetically is setting up what your year is going to be, and because of the way the numerology works, it's going to be setting up a lot about what the next few years will be for you. And so it's a really exciting time. And when Dahlia suggested this particular conversation, I was very excited about it. But back to me, I'm an author. I've written around, I lost track, I think it's around 38 books the last time I counted. And I just released the sixth book in an 8-book fictional series on Arthurian fiction. It's actually post-Arthurian fiction. And so I'm very excited for that. That also is going to be, it's an instrumental part of the conversation we're going to have again about numerology for me today. And I have written a number of books on metaphysics, another number of books on other topics as well. Plus, I do professional witch work for people. I do spell work for people. I do professional cleansings for people, energetic cleansings for people. I do astrology charts and do readings for people. So my entire day job is involved with the energetic movement that other people are experiencing and how to help them get from point A to point B in a positive way. So that's what I do. And I also teach classes. I'm excited to say that my next class is set up. It's going to be announced today. And that is January 21st, which is a Saturday. It'll be at 2 o'clock p.m. Pacific time, 5 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. And it is going to be on weather witchery. Next month's class is on spiritual cleansings and how to do egg cleansings. So we're going to have classes coming up pretty regularly. They're going to be Zoom classes, and I'm really excited to get moving with that. So be sure and check crossroadsoccult.com for more information that'll come out today about that.
Excellent. So, on the topic of lunar energies, so what the moon is it's not probably, it is the planet that moves fastest through your astrology. So you're not just your sun sign, your rising, and you also have a lunar component to all of that. And so There's the moon moving through your sign, there's the moon moving through your personal chart, and then there's the moon doing what it does on a global scale. And as of, I think it was like 9:26 this morning, the moon went from void of course. So if you were feeling kind of nebulous when you woke up this morning, it's because it had no direction. And then closer to the 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock time frame, it settled into the sign of Cancer. Now, Cancerian energy is nurturing. It's you always hear people talking about Cancers loving to cook for people, and they're like the home and the hearth kind of people, family people. There is an imbalanced side. We're not gonna shy away from that. Every sign has its dark side, its shadow half. Um, but for the most part, Cancerian energy wants you to really settle into like that self-care piece, that work-life balance piece. And I thought that was pertinent to the beginning of the year because it it doesn't ever, I can't recall the last time that that was encouraged at this time of the year because of the
Mhm,
frenzy
mhm.
of newness and the new year and all of that. And it's like that is that you on an emotional level along with the physical level, because it's winter time, may be feeling like, hey, I don't know if I do want to start those new goals. I heard a lot of people saying, I didn't set goals this year, I just didn't feel like it. So yeah.
What you said. So, yeah, you put it perfectly. Of interest is that we will still be in a Cancer moon when we hit that full moon tomorrow.
Hmm.
And I'm uniquely positioned to address the Cancer issue, not only because I have a Cancer moon, but because my son Dylan, who is my fifth child, is actually a triple Cancer. Now, the way that I like to describe that astrological construct, I've talked about this on the show before, is that people read your sun sign. Okay, I am a Cancer. But as you pointed out, that's one component of what creates that personality. And so your sun sign, think of that as the foundation the house is built on. Think of your rising sign or your ascendant, as it's also called, as the facade of the house. What do people see when they drive past? And the moon sign is, what does your house look like on the inside when you open the door? So we all know that there's lots of houses that look beautiful on the outside and are totally hoarded or dirty on the inside. And there's sometimes you'll see a place that looks very, very simple and austere and unkempt on the outside, and you walk in and it's a palace. So we never know what the interior of a house is going to look like. And the moon sign is the same way. The moon sign is all about what do we feel? How do we process things? It's all about the stuff that happens on our insides. And my little triple Cancer kid, as soon as I ran, of course, the second that I squeeze out a child, I'm on the computer, getting,
Same.
you do the same. Okay, what's going on here? Tell me everything about this child before I unwrap the package here. But I saw triple Cancer, and I, of course, well, this can't be right. Go back and redoing it, because oh shit, those Cancers, they just, God, the feels. It's all about the feels and the feels and the feels and the feels. And I thought, I can't manage this. This is my fifth kid. I can't do this. And sure enough, this kid is a big old fat triple Cancer. And I want to tell you, they're all adults now, all six of them. This is the most chill kid I have ever met in my life. We called him the Buddha baby because he was so serene. He rarely cried. He just looked around and processed everything and took everything in. Now he is the universally liked kid. All of my kids have problems with each other. Nobody has a problem with Dylan. Everybody adores Dylan. He's just the coolest person ever. He's got the most awesome wife ever. And he's just an amazing person, which surprised me. I didn't think a triple anything could be cool. It does seem like if you get into that triple, well, to be clear, triple means that your moon, your sun, and your rising sign there's no mistaking. You are just all that sign.
Yeah, there's an intensity to
Yeah.
it.
So there should be an imbalance, right? And
Right.
he's just like the most perfect human on the planet. And it's
Aw.
not just me. It's not just like, this is my kid. Everybody's like, oh yeah, Dylan, wow. You know, he's too good for this world. So cancers have a very special place in my heart because of that. Many of my children have cancer placements. And the thing about cancer males in particular, oh my God, they love their mommies. They are, like you mentioned, hearth and home. Hearth and home is very important to them. And so they draw in. In fact, when we moved into our new house, it had another smaller house that's like 1,000 square foot studio. We moved Dylan into the house, because it was the right timing for that, but also because it just felt like the thing to do to have him, that close to home. So cancer is an amazing time. And as you mentioned, self-care, self-care, self-care. It is unusual for it to be in this time. But again, when we get to that place where we're talking about numerology in this specific broadcast, you're going to see why that makes sense. That right now we need to kick this month out with some good self-care.
All right, well, let's kick it off. The numerology for 2023. So we are in a 7-year, and that's added up based on the timing of the year and all of that. And then you have your personal numerology. But this is a 7-year. So kind of breezing through what I think I know of numerology, which isn't a lot. One's it's the beginning. 2, it's about balance. 3 is I forget.
Synergy.
Okay, that makes sense. 4.
It's about the reachievement, let's not do all of them. That's too hard.
Okay. Well, 5 is change, 6 is I don't know, but here we are at 7 because, well, we could say last year was kind of as a 6
What's
year.
interesting is 5 is a universally fucked up year.
Yes.
5 is just always wonky and out of balance. And look how 2021 went. Man, that was a rough
One thing after another. One thing after another.
Yeah.
And so now that we're in this 7-year, 7 tends to be very spiritual. 7 is a sacred number across many different cultures. And, you see that in creation stories, you see that in chakra systems, you have 7 main ones. The 7th day in the Bible, all of that comes to mind. And so, numerologically speaking, 7 years is meant to be a very spiritual time. Now, we spent a great deal last year talking about sort of the shallowness that had come with 2020 awakenings and spirituality and people kind of piecemealing things together. And it's important to say that whatever your lead into spirituality or your lead home back to self is, it's important. And yet, because we are such a superficial culture and superficial species at the moment, these things, when they are not grounded in something, it can become unwound in years like this. And so 7-year being spiritual, it's like, yay, woohoo, it's gonna be, am I gonna see the aliens and the ghosts this year? Who knows? If you're not already seeing them. But it can have this instability to it for things that were not grounded in you. They were just something that somebody told you had to do, or you were given information, but it just kind of freaked you out. I mean, I don't know if you remember, our audience, if you all remember, we were talking a little bit about some videos I'd found on YouTube where people woke up, were trying spirituality out, and then they just got freaked the fuck out by the things that they were experiencing. One of them, I think, involved like drugs or something like that. She was into drugs and trying to do spiritual things, and it just was not going well for her. I've seen others where they were like, yeah, I woke up and I was buying the crystals and then I was having these experiences that didn't feel good, so I just threw the crystals away. And I I didn't understand it. But these people may have been feeling the precipice of that seven energy coming forward. And I just find it very interesting that now this is the energy that we're stepping into.
I completely agree. Seven is, when we have a 7 year, that is the strongest and the most spiritual year that we have, other than 11, which is a master number. So it's going to be a big deal. It really is. And for some people, it may be overpowering, but you really put your finger on it when you said the things that are superficial are going to be released. Now, what came to my mind when you said that is that within ourselves, and this is a medical phenomenon that has been observed repeatedly, it takes approximately 7 years for us to process a whole new set of cells within our body.
Interesting.
So when we look at medical experiences, taking that theory and extrapolating from it, every 7 years, we have created an entirely new body because we have turned over cell production in such a way that everything is now a new cell. And so it's not as though on the last day of that 7th year, bam, we're suddenly different. It's been an evolutionary change. It's been a process over that 7 years of all of those cells changing out. And so it's interesting that spirituality, long predating that knowledge, has 7 as a time of renewal and a time of really claiming yourself. Now, we look at 7 in regard to the tarot. The 2 cards that are 7s numerologically are the Chariot, which is something moving forward almost, not quite, but almost to the point that it's out of our control. When we look at most tarot cards that, hi, Karen, I love you.
Yes, I was just about to mention that, Karen, at the end of what Katrina was saying.
Now she's also a numerology person, so she'll be a good addition to this conversation. When we're looking at most tarot decks and we see the Chariot, there's a little bit of crazy in that charioteer's eyes. He has that look like, I'm holding on, but I don't know how much longer I can hold on. He also has, in most depictions, 2 horses, a black and a white one, who look like they're about to pull in different directions. So he's trying very hard to just hang on and keep all of this going. And that's where our 7s really start to come into play with this 7 year. Is this will start to sometimes feel out of control. This will start to feel like more than we can manage. And we just have to hold on and keep going, because you know what the other 7 card is in the tarot? It's the Tower. So I'm just going to leave it there.
The Tower.
It's the Tower.
Oh.
So yeah, 7 is a time when we look at 7 years, or as in this is a 7 year. I also, for my personal year, this is a 3 year for me. So those marry up very, very nicely, because with a 7 year, it's all about turning inward. It's all about looking inside. It's very self-involved. So there's no more of this externalizing to what's happening out there in the world. Mm-hmm. It's looking inside. And like you said, because this is going to be our punctuation mark for everything we say about a 7 year, anything that is superficial will not stand. You can't play these bullshit games with yourself anymore. Nope. You can't pretend things are different than they are. But the beauty of it is you have this baseline of reality that comes to you that gives you the power to know what to do to fix it. And so it's a very sacred and self-aware time that can be really helpful and really instrumental. Whereas for me, with a 3 year, that's about self-improvement and expansion. So that's my focus for this year. I'm putting everything into really perfecting some things that have been long-term issues for me that I've not been able to fix, and trying to use that 7-year energy to catapult that into success.
I didn't even bother calculating my numerology. I was just like, whatever, it's a 7-year. Also, it's a rabbit year. Hooray!
Burn it!
So I'm not a water rabbit, I'm a fire rabbit. But besides that, I love what you said here. For those of you out there who want to do that sort of combination work and really get into the nitty gritty of where to focus your energy this year, we talk a lot about having a personal word for the year and stuff like that. And this is perfect. It's a 7-year. Do your numerology, find out what your personal year is, and see how you can marry those two concepts the way that Katrina just described. And you'll have your direction. You don't even have to think about your personal word. You'll just be like, oh, this is what we're doing. For those of you, I felt this like I started to consider, you and I, Katrina, are mutable signs. We're Virgos. We don't like change, but we do okay. We probably do more than okay. Just gonna, throw that out there. And that said, those who might struggle are probably the fixed signs. Like, they may be like, what do you mean waves of change? They're coming, not necessarily because of the superficiality of it, but this is a year where people are really going to be evaluating their belief systems, the things that they may have had identity in that no longer make sense. And so, yeah, it's going to be intense.
So for those of you who don't, I hope Colleen didn't leave yet, because I think she got overwhelmed with what we're talking about. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about when we say this is a 7-year, that is nothing more than adding together the digits of the year. So when we look at 2023, it's 2 + 2 + 3, which is a 7. When we look at a personal year, we're talking about adding together your birthday. So I'm September 5th. So it's 9 and 5, which is 14. And then you add that together and it's a 5. And then you add that to the 7, which makes a 12, which reduces down to a 3. What you got?
5.
Oh, damn. Sorry. Sorry for your luck there, Dahlia. It's been nice knowing you. So that's what we're talking about. When we say it's a 7-year, we're not saying anything other than the fact that the numbers add up to 7, and that tends to have a numerological impact. Now, the way that numerology is a thing, even if you don't follow numerology, is if you have ever changed your name because of marriage, because of preference of identity, or whatever that might be, you will notice you feel different when you have a different name. And that's because the numerology of your name changes. Yeah, so really, absolutely. Numbers make a difference. When you move into a new house, the numerology of your address means something. So it's a fascinating field to get into. You can, like astrology, you can dive super deep into it and do nothing else but study this. I'm not in that place, but it's a fascinating subject. This is my favorite numerology book.
Okay, great reference.
I love it. And it probably is the book. You know that book? I think you mentioned it too. The only astrology book you'll ever need.
Oh yeah, I love that book.
And it actually is.
Yeah. Like down to being able to calculate your numerology by hand, just using the back of the book. It's nuts.
So this is my only numerology book I ever need.
So quick Google fingers allowed me to see here that 5 isn't all bad. It's pushing boundaries, it's exploration, new ideas. So I'm feeling a little better about that. But the initial, I pull 5 from the tarot, and I was struggling to think of any of the tarot cards that are 5 that look good.
They're all uncomfortable cards, and that's the best thing I can say about it, is that 5 is a card of or number of discomfort. When we think of a fifth wheel, for instance, it's somebody who's tagging along on a double date and feels uncomfortable. So it's all about discomfort. Now, the alternative is that at Christmas you get 5 golden rings. That's a good thing. But
All
5 is
right.
generally a weird, uncomfortable number. 7, that's a lucky number.
So, Denise, just to throw this out there, your 8 years about self-empowerment. Now, we're not going to do everybody's personal years, but combined, this is another great example. So if I'm going to be going through, pushing boundaries and new ideas in a 7 year, it actually feels very fortunate.
Yes.
Because this could be a 9 year where it's like, throw it all away
You
and
weren't
hope for
using
the
that anyway.
best. Where if 8 is supposed to be self-empowerment for you in this fortunate year, things may go more smoothly. And Denise happens to be a Cancer, so what I would say is let go of what you think has always been, and how you might sometimes be like, no, nobody's gonna change, people don't learn, and realize that this year is actually on your side.
So it's really a simple process with numerology. People tend to overcomplicate it. It doesn't have to be a hard thing. It's just a matter of adding numbers together, and very small numbers. So
Right, small numbers, we hate
yeah,
math.
it's really not outside of anyone's skill set to research some of those things. And there are standard spiritual energies assigned to the different numbers. It's not just numerology. It goes, as you were mentioning with the sevens, it goes, I would say, cross pantheon or cross tradition as far as this assignment. 3 is also a highly spiritual number. When we talk about the Trinity and bread thrown upon the waters of life come back threefold. And when we consider that, it's about 3 being a number of synergy. What we put out there comes back to us in a big way. So,
Sure.
This is a universal thought process. It's not just, all of these numerology monks, think this way. It's a summation of a number of different paths that have assigned certain values to different numbers.
Absolutely. Another one of those paths, which is more contemporary, is angel numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the concept of angel numbers, the 7 is all about having like the Midas touch, the golden, anything you do, anything you put your hands to will be successful. And so you can see some play, some overlap with whoever. I wonder. I've never gone into researching who kind of came up with the idea of angel numbers, but clearly the channeling had some influence from what's already available that we know about sevens. The only 7 concept that I think I'm uncomfortable with is the 7 in the tarot, the 7 of cups.
Mm-hmm.
That's that's the only one that is like, because of the emotional overwhelm, not
Mm-hmm.
knowing what to choose, that kind of piece. But even then, it's still a beneficial card, because I mean, having great options and too many to choose from is not necessarily a bad problem. It's more of a first world problem.
Absolutely. And when we think about what you said about a 7 year, it's about the superficial releasing. And in that picture, we have got all of these depictions of what could be considered superficial attachments, but they're up in a cloud. We've got the image of beauty, we've got the image of money, we've got the image of sexuality, and all of those different ideals that somebody has pushed away into the realm of thought and into the cloud rather than manifesting into being here on earth. So it's an interesting concept to incorporate into that idea of a 7 year. And the nice thing about a 7 year is it lets us sort thoughts so that we become a little bit more streamlined and dialed in. It's a great year to decide what you do and don't believe. And that seems like something that should be self-evident. But what happens a lot of times is that we don't question our beliefs. We don't put them to the litmus. We don't see if those things still carry weight for us. We just let them take up space in our mental closet. And if we can be at a place where we critically examine some of our beliefs and see what we still believe to be true, some of those things we can release and make room for more truths.
Absolutely. And this is really like when people go through their sort of awakening process, I hate that word so much because it's so overused, but
It's very
that
toxic positive, isn't it?
right, but I don't have another word right now.
But also it implies that when we wake up that everything's cool, and sometimes
Well,
it's just not.
but this is that, to me, that awakening process is the 7 year, you know what I mean, that people thought they were waking up when they came to some realizations that life was out of balance, or that, maybe the church didn't tell them everything, and it's like, no, now you're really you're gonna take those glasses off, and you are going to get to see what's there. I was talking on a video yesterday about how we have aspects of us involved in so many different dimensions and realities and things like that, and when I say dimensions, I do mean, like, you know um you being connected to plants in one way, shape, or form, you being connected to crystals in one way, shape, or form, and that being part of your reality. If it was, like we've been saying in the show, if it was superficial, it's going to start to dissolve. You might not be into essential oils after the show is over, or not the show, but the year is over. You may not you may give up your yoga practice. You may completely change jobs because you cannot get behind the values that are invested in that job the way you could just overlook them before because of one reason or another. And
That's so true. That was really a wonderful observation. And so often I think when what you're discussing, wait, Denise, I got you. Uh, when you're discussing things like taking those into consideration, changing jobs, changing ideas, um, reconsidering those things, too often we feel this sort of frantic sense of loss when we
mm,
start to feel those things release. And it's so important that we just open arms wide and just let them go.
whew, that was me in the store.
I know, I remember. We were so different because and Eric had your reaction in to some degree. It was like, no, 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 I need it. I'm like, bye.
Oh my goodness, yes. That 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 clinging, that sense of, there's even as you were talking, I was reminded of the sense of loyalty. Like, we define ourselves by standards like loyalty, and it's like, if I change this, if I leave this job, they will not be able to do without me. And it's like, they don't even care if you do, they'll fill another body in that
Yeah,
space,
they would
you know.
fire you in a heartbeat if it served the company.
Right. And so the shifts and changes that can take place when you bring numerology into it, it's very interesting. I wonder, if our audience members have, like, either their own personal businesses, or you could probably even calculate for the number of years, like when you started your job. What is this year going to be for you in your employment, and how does that play out for you? Are you in a 5 year like me, where you're going to be like, well, boundaries, or are you in the same alignment as the 7 year, where you're going to be like, I can't do this anymore? It's going to be very interesting. I'd love to hear in the comment section kind of what's going on with folks.
You know, Karen mentioned the Saturn return. And on a personal level, when we're looking at a person's chart, not globally, but a person's chart, we look for Saturn to show up approximately every 29-ish years. And that's a time when life just kicks the monopoly table. I mean, the board, the game board, it's just boom. Everything changes, and we don't expect a person to come out of that 3.5 years of that Saturn return, which I'll describe in a second, with the same partner, with the same job, with the same lifestyle, even living in the same house. Everything changes. And what we're talking about when we look at a Saturn return is, if we take a picture of the sky at the moment the person is born and where all of the planets are on that chart, when Saturn comes back around to the exact place it was when you were born, and it takes Saturn around 29, 28, 31 years, depending on, it's an ellipse, so it's different. Depending on when it comes back to that space, Saturn is going to figure out what your limitations are and start kicking them out so that you're not having that problem. So what happens then is that if you didn't heed the lessons at that 29 approximate year time, it's going to come back around when you're 58, 59, 60. And you're going to have another explosion that's going to happen. And so 7 years are a little bit like that, but not as dramatic in terms of, falling onto the fainting couch and everything going away. It's more of a dynamic thing that happens that you participate in, where you are going in and making those evaluations. Now, I want to say, and I'm sure Dahlia will agree with this, these 7 years are a preamble because they're an opportunity to go within, to take your audit, to see what's working and what isn't, to see what brings you joy and what doesn't, to Marie Kondo all this mess right here. And if you don't do that, the universe will do it for you later and you don't get to call the shots.
You do not. Saturn will come and fuck up your
It will
house. Just
beat your ass.
tear it apart. Saturn has a peak time this year, and that's March 7th. I'm looking at a thing. I'd seen it. So I've been playing with an ephemeris and looking at trying to, make plans around lunar energies and things like that. And Saturn showed up in March, and it was like, yeah, it's going to be a big thing. And I'm looking at a thing here that says the ocean of undoing as Saturn enters Pisces on March 7th. And I'm like, holy crap.
It might say the ocean of undoing. What it really means is the ocean of unfucking.
Yeah. I mean, I can fully see that because that time is supposed to be like the pinnacle of this whole, faith questioning and figuring out who you are. I had an astrologer, he's still my astrologer, I shouldn't say had, where he talks about Pisces being a nebulous experience. And they can spend their whole life trying to figure out who they are. It's not preferred, and I'm sure some do a great job of figuring it out before their life is over. But they can get swept into certain things and certain ways of being in an almost intoxicated state, only to find that it wasn't part of who they were, and then they're on to the next thing. And so the wave of unfucking sounds about right. Like whatever you had going on.
Again, I hate to keep drawing it back to it, but what you said before, the superficial, the stuff that is not rooted in who you are, and the things that you're doing that don't support who you plan to be or wish to be, are the things that are going to fall away this year. Anything that would have been an obstacle to how you see yourself evolving is going to be released, and it's a wonderful thing. It sounds like a scary thing, but it's a wonderful thing to be able to be free of the boat anchors tied to your feet that keep you from being able to fly.
Absolutely. And the I'm looking forward to this aspect of things being inward, more from a place of like, there was a lot of spiritual learning happening, and now everybody's going to get to understand, what their gifts are on a personal level, instead of saying, okay, well, I need to meditate so that I can start pulling cards and doing tarot like Katrina does. It's going to be about integrating my own aspect of how I connect with the cards and things like that. And that's going to be happening across the board for everybody. It's how I've always taught my classes. People will say things like, well, how do you channel? And I'm like, well, you can have these little micro tips that allow you to connect with the divine, but tell me about you. Tell me about how you connect with your neighbor, how you communicate, and then let's take that into a spiritual space and see how you might connect with deity, the divine, or your, whoever. And that's going to be happening across the board too. So I'm very excited that now uh I will look less like a crazy person as I say, hey, you have your own gifts and you have your own way of doing this. I promise you. People are really going to start to be able to integrate that message. So I'm very
It
excited about
really
that.
is the year of fuck around and find out, because you are going to try different things, and some are going to work and some aren't. And it's about immediately releasing or let's back up, immediately identifying and releasing those things that are not working, that don't work, letting them go and getting invested in the things that they do, so that when you get to your 8 year, congratulations, Denise, you're able to integrate those into something you can proudly move forward into that 10 space later on. So definitely, again, it's about being fearless and merciless when you go into your self audit, and creating that kind of self awareness that lets you understand what works for you and what doesn't. Sometimes you were talking about loyalty. Sometimes we convince ourselves something is working for us. Sometimes we
Mm-hmm.
I will convince that my diet works for me because I love carbs. I know my body doesn't feel good on carbs, and I know I don't meet my goals with carbs. So this is the year of, then you know what? You need to stop with the lies you're telling yourself and get invested in what's real.
The Just so you guys know, Saturn is in Aquarius until it reaches Pisces. So I feel like that's an interesting transit. Pisces or Aquarius is very like, I think, global thinking, where Pisces can kind of come from this place of self, like framing from self experiences. Um, and so while we're moving through this time period, beginning of the year to March, um, you know, there's going to be these massive shifts and changes in belief system, but also in relationships. And, we kind of already mentioned career. And one thing we hadn't tackled, which seems important, is finance. So this is the year that you want to clean up your stuff. Like whatever you have going on, if you haven't addressed it yet, make sure that you're on top of it. I and this is not speaking to reported potential, um what are they called, recessions and things like that, but just the energy of money is going to be highlighted wherever it is for you, wherever you are. um so I think that's interesting. I didn't necessarily associate money with Aquarius, but
Hmm. One thing that's interesting about Aquarians, and this seems to be universal, is, and so this time of Aquarius is instrumental in what we're going to discuss, or what I'm about to say. We also can hark back to the old thing of the age of Aquarius being the time coming that really underlines what I'm about to say, and that is the idea of marching to your own drum. Aquarians are very unique in the way they think, the way they interact with other people, and the way that they see the world. Their worldview is really specialized. And so, as we move into that time, that's another thing that's going to come up, is that your own unique perspective will become even more valuable and more creditable, if you want to say that, valid, as you move into the time period that Dahlia is discussing.
the other cool thing about this whole, like you said, that unique perspective is how we'll be pulling away from this need to like that we all need to believe the same way. I am so looking forward to the ease of that because of how divisive 2020, 2021, and all of those years have been. Um, Now we get an opportunity to say, okay, well, your idea is different than mine. It's either that we just agree to disagree, or you'll help me expand into a new way of thinking just by, you standing in your own space. And so it seems like an opportunity to, um, step into a new way of thinking, new way of being. I mean, we completely glossed over Mercury retrograde, or at least I did.
It pales in comparison, doesn't it?
Now it's not the worst thing that could happen this year. That's kind of funny. Um, so you may find yourself not only revisiting, what was occurring in old relationships, but like Katrina said, what was happening 7 years ago for you? What was happening 29 years ago for you? It seems like this time of year, you were absolutely right. We need to fucking nurture because this is a lot.
Yes, it
Like
is.
we need to cocoon. Everybody,
Yeah.
buckle your seatbelt and go into your cave. Just
And you're
don't.
in winter. That's what you're supposed to be doing now anyway. Even everything outside is saying, we're inhospitable. Why are you out here? Go inside where it's warm.
Right.
And so your spirit is the same thing. Go inside where it's warm. Go inside and tell the stories, which is another thing that's important to this time of year. This was a time of teaching and learning and sharing. And you need to turn all of that into yourself and teach and learn and share. Learn from what happened 7 years ago. Learn from what happened this year and last year. Learn from what went on with your Saturn return and process all of that. Make those count. Make that learning worth something and come up with a plan or put it out there to the universe and say, I don't know what to do to fix this. I'm going to follow you. And then take the information as it comes.
This is why I love our conversations because my opening crystal cognizance happened on my Saturn return. And so now I am exactly in that reevaluative space to say, hey, okay, what worked, what didn't. And so thank you for that awareness, Katrina. The show's not about me, but here we are.
I think I mentioned this on my show before, but I used to have a personal relationship with a wonderful man who was a licensed marriage and family counselor. And this was before the internet and before we had computers to calculate and track and classify and add things. And he did me the favor of checking within his current caseload the number of people who were either within a year or so of 29 or within a year or so of 58, and it was some ridiculous amount like 86%. And so it really is, he was really stunned that it would be so far beyond reasonable numbers. So it really is a thing, that really is a tough time. And there really is a lot of change that happens during those times. So pay close attention. There's a wonderful book I don't have my hands on. In fact, I think my copy of it burned up, called Saturn, A New Look at an Old Devil. And it's a fantastic academic, boring in places, fascinating in others, exploration of Saturn as a planetary influence.
That's very interesting. They say that window of time, that 29-year window is, it's very high for suicide attempts
Oh, no
and things like
doubt.
that. Yeah.
The book is by Liz Green. And yeah, it's a wonderful book if you ever really want to deep dive on that.
Woo. Okay. So, I mean, shit. And the full moon is tomorrow. What each full moon carries its own energies to it. It's a full moon in Cancer. What we've been talking about is that Cancerian energy being about nurturing. I would say, call out tomorrow. It's Friday. Just tell them, just write an email that says planets, and then go home and um, self evaluate, not in some sort of frantic, oh my God, things are going to be falling from the sky place, but what would it take for you to settle into the fact that, settle into what change means for you? You know, are you going to, how do you handle grief? How do you handle loss? Start bringing those things, those tools out of the shed. You might need them, and just know that the universe never leaves a void. I think we've said that on the show before. The universe never leaves a void. There cannot be an empty space. And so, uh, God willing, Goddess willing, there will be more on the other side of this. But this is a big year of change. And we've said it the whole time.
Yes, that's absolutely true. I'm sorry. I was just thinking about what you said. I got lost in it. It absolutely is a time of wonderful change. And there's people like you and like me who do struggle with change sometimes and have had to train ourselves to be comfortable letting go and be comfortable shifting with even good change. But this, I don't know how much you can trust me on this or not, but this is a good change.
It
Sevens
is.
almost always bring wonderful, wonderful dynamic change. So definitely go with it. Follow those urges. Pay attention to what comes up for you. If you're not a big meditator, let that be okay. And just go with what you're feeling. And remember that depending on how you process divine information, it might be go with what you're seeing, go with what you're
Mhm.
hearing. It's not always feeling. People, and this is an Aquarian thing that we're going to be talking about more and more, I'm sure, in episodes this year. Um, Not everybody feels or processes divine information in the same way. So,
No, and it's a beautiful thing. Because I think this is something I've mentioned before in like classes and things like that. I think that we all are tapped on into different wavelengths when we're dealing with psychic information, and so it is impossible to separate that like personal personal belief system from the channeling completely. And here's what I mean: if you are a person that doesn't believe in Krishna, then that being is not coming through for you in a channeling. It's just not going to happen. And if you don't believe in Jesus for one reason or another, like he's not going to show up for you in intuitive work. If you have some sort of resistance to, I've seen this actually, not seen it, it was relayed to me. This person went to a psychic for a love reading, and that psychic clearly had wounds around love and was like, well, you need to do this and you need to do that because this is what I see. And it was like, whoa, projection, slow down, this is not about you, it's asking about my love life, you know. And but that psychic could not see or intuit beyond their lens. And so to have people intuit from their own space and time, pull information through in their own unique ways, it's actually going to be very expansive and very beautiful in the end.
when, and you know this from uh, different class experiences, when I'm teaching my people how to start working as a healer for another person, I always warn them that what's going to come up is the rearranging and the healing work that needs to happen on the things that are obstacles for them, because it came through 3 times. We got it. Oh,
Oh,
we're good. Um, because yeah, that is going to be a block for us. And if we have those unhealed places that we have just pushed away until a 7 year comes, we aren't going to be able to hear and process and work on those frequencies because it's contaminated for us. by our negative experiences. And that isn't to say that you got to fix everything all at once, but it is important to know that when we have wounds, when we have traumas regarding certain parts of our lives, we're not a trust reporter. We're gonna have contamination on those frequencies. So it's always best that we do work to resolve those things so that we can hear clearly.
Absolutely. And I mean I think at least everybody's ultimate goal is to expand as far and as wide as we can. And the last piece in there was why I don't think that I don't I don't think that there can be like a wrong reading, so to speak. I mean, you might be tapped into a timeline or a wavelength that that person is not on, but if they make a decision, then they will be on that timeline. So it's always interesting to see. This is not a like go see as many readers as you can. That's what frustrates me so much. um,
Keep going until you get the answer you want.
no, don't do that. It's horrible. Oh my God, so bad. Have seen it, have experienced it, hated every minute. And I think both Katrina and I are like the person that'll be like, yeah, you don't need a reading. Have a nice day.
And then
So,
we get those people that ask us a question, we answer it, and have, 3 different readings showing them what exactly it is, showing them the cards that we get the answer from, and they ask us the same exact question in a different way, trying to elicit some different response. And so really just, boy, be open. But
we're in a 7-year. It's not gonna fly anyway. It's
mm-mm,
not that
no, that
shit ain't
won't
gonna
work.
fly.
I don't know about you, but I get this sometimes on our Thursday nights when I'm doing lots of readings in a row for people, because we'll do maybe 50 readings or so in an hour when we're
Oh,
doing
and
Witches of
one watch.
Crossroads. Yeah. And there's times the same card will keep coming up, in maybe a third of the readings we'll have this same card. No matter how much I shuffle, I'll change decks and get the same card. And it makes me wonder, am I just doing my own reading over and over?
I don't know about back to back, but I've definitely been in a reading where I'm like, ooh, wait a minute. Let me clear the energy because this sounds like it's for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well, guys, we're about at that time again. And for first show, I feel like this was we really packed it in. If you're feeling overwhelmed by the information, if any of it seems confusing, go back, watch the replay, do your research, and find your place in all of it. You can always reach out, ask small questions of either of us, and if you're wondering a little further into what the year holds, that's one great question to ask on watch tonight at well, it's 10 o'clock my time. What time is it for you? It's at
7.
7 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Eastern. You know, I'm sure they're not going to spend an hour on you telling you what your year is going to be like.
No, we will
But
not
it's
address what your year is at all.
oh, not at all. Ah,
No,
bummer. Okay.
we're just doing the readings.
Okay. Well, it's still a good time. Go over and check it out. And as we go through this year, again, we said it last year, drop those interested subject matter in the comments section, reach out, and continue to share community with us. We love you guys. We love being here with you. And thank you. We will catch you next time on Crossroads of Cognizance. Good night, everybody.
Night.